The first Spanish language newspaper published in the United States was El Mississippi, founded in New Orleans in 1808 to advocate the independence of the Spanish colonies in the New World. Philadelphia and New York were also some of the first newspaper outlets in Spanish in the United States. The reason for this Spanish language newspaper to even come in to America to begin with was because in 1807, while the Constitution was being made in order to break from the European colonies, they brought in Hispanic intellectuals to translate the U.S. Constitution into Spanish. And this led to the newspaper articles in Spanish letting Latino Americans know that we were finally free from the Spanish colonies. Regardless of them needing to inform Hispanics that they were finally free from the Spanish colonies, Spanish newspapers would have inevitably been a reality. There are many cultural differences between Americans and Hispanics. For example, the language, traditions, beliefs, and newspapers were a way for them to feel united in America. Having a voice made them feel like they were finally part of this country, thus leading to them assimilating here. Not to mention, since these Latino Americans were new to the United States, they also didn't speak any English at all, so Spanish language newspapers were needed for them to get their information and be able to know what's happening in their new country. Spanish language newspapers caused a positive reaction among Hispanic immigrants because they were informed in their native language that they had finally received an independence from Spain, thus leading them to a newfound nationality and patriotism. In my interview with Dr. Cayeno, I asked him how he thought the Spanish newspaper in 1808 impacted the U.S. today, which he responded with, "Being the first Spanish language newspaper showed that it was possible to print and distribute information in Spanish. At the time, there were also newspapers in German, French, and other languages in the United States." A big topic I wanted to bring up while interviewing him was if he thought that Spanish language media shows enough Hispanic diversity and representation, which he responded with, "No, I do not think. I think they're still selling European-based concepts of beauty and value. In part, this is true because the owners of the media are more European stock than anything else. However, the audiences are so accustomed to these class and race distinctions in Latin America and the United States that they expect status quo to be reinforced." Here you see a really popular newspaper branch called El Diario. Evelyn Hernandez wrote about being a Latina journalist at a Spanish language newspaper outlet. Her personal newspaper article gave me a first-hand point of view of an actual Spanish newspaper journalist. It also helped me understand that her job was to advocate the Hispanic community. She said that in her job she had to make strong opinion pages that reflect the issues and concerns that are important to her people, the Hispanic community, who come from many different Hispanic countries. With this, there comes a pressure of not showing the right things and really listening to the Latinx community, because it's important for them to know what's going on, because this is their country too. So this just goes to show that Spanish newspapers have transformed into many different news outlets just like any other language. And it's more than just saying the weather and telling you about politics. It's a way for them to express themselves and inspire young people into maybe becoming journalists themselves, thus growing the media even bigger. It's not only information, but entertainment too. Many journalists have talked about interacting with different Hispanic communities and asking them what information they need, and sometimes it could be about schools closures, food pantries, or neighborhood news. I think that it's important for everyone to get information regardless the language they speak in. This might sound like common sense, but in reality, a lot of minorities have languages that aren't mass-produced like the Hispanic community with their Spanish media outlets. Since 1808, when the first Spanish language newspaper was released and published, Spanish language media has grown tremendously. There is not only newspapers that are mass-produced today, but there's other platforms just as big as English-speaking platforms. For example, one of them is Univision Communications. And they have their own channel, their own website, and, other big social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Since then, now Spanish language media is not hard to come by. Hispanics do not have to struggle to get their information. In fact, it's very easy for them to. Spanish language media united Hispanics across America, and it is so important to understand that. Spanish language media has helped create a consensus of what Hispanic or Latino is, to make all Latino or Hispanics feel connected as a group or family. It is important for us to recognize our common history, culture, language, and needs. It is especially important for us to be able to recognize our common needs and our common oppression, so that we can organize to improve our economic, educational, political, and social circumstances. So diverse. And statistics say Hispanics readers are 45% Mexican or of Mexican descent, 28% Puerto Rican, and 50% Central or Southern American, and about 2% Cuban. Chicago is also the largest Hispanic market and tends to appeal mostly to Mexican and the Puerto Rican community. This is a great example of Hispanic Spanish language media today. It is the campaign of Juntos We Can Stop COVID-19, created by UT Health in San Antonio. This flyer and source of information is a way to get COVID information to the Hispanic community, because many Hispanics don't know English, so something as big as this pandemic will definitely harm a lot of people regardless of what language they speak, obviously. So it is important for everyone to know what to do in this situation. This shows that Spanish media is very important for not only political advice, but health advice. The long-term legacy is that for decades, Spanish language news outlets have kept Hispanics informed of important information and social issues happening in the United States. Spanish media is a medium for Hispanics across the country to express themselves and create entertainment for many Hispanics to relate to and love today. It's more than just communicating. It's a way to feel like you're not alone and there's a little bit of your home, or maybe your parents' home, depending on what generation of Hispanic you are. But to have a little piece of home in your heart and not let your culture die.